Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing. This morning across the country, sirens blared at 10 a.m., beginning a day of reflection as Israel commemorates Holocaust Remembrance Day. This is a solemn day when Jews all over the world look directly into the past to face the horrors of Hitler's final solution, as well as to the future to ensure that such an atrocity never happens again. Ceremonies officially began last night at sundown. For Prime Minister Netanyahu, who spoke at an event in Jerusalem, the grim demise of 6 million Jews at the hands of the Nazis in World War II has more relevance today than ever before, given the threat of both Iran and Syria on Israel's doorstep. Today's 10 a.m. sirens are a customary tradition for this day of remembrance. For 2 minutes, Israelis all over the country stopped walking, stopped their cars, and bowed their heads in reverence. The Israeli Knesset is also conducting its yearly Unto Every Person There Is a Name ceremony, a ritual which recites the names of those Jews lost in the Holocaust for nearly 2 hours. This will all coincide with the March of the Living in Poland later this afternoon, where Israeli President Reuven Rivlin and top security brass will march 3 kilometers from Auschwitz to Birkenau extermination camps. Meanwhile, Israelis continue to carry the motto, "Never Again," to say that such horrors will never again befall the Jewish people. Well, it's official. Guatemala is officially set to become the second country to move its embassy to Jerusalem, effectively recognizing the city as a capital of Israel. Apparently, we won't have to wait too soon for this either. Guatemala's new embassy is set to open its door on May 16th, just 2 days after Netanyahu cuts the red tape at the new Jerusalem-based American embassy. Guatemala's ambassador is currently in Jerusalem as we speak, going over the fine print. President Jimmy Morales announced just last month that Guatemala would be next to move its embassy, but now that it's a done deal, many Israelis are obviously doing backflips. While Netanyahu has often boasted that other countries would quickly follow America's example, much of the world has been hesitant to say the least. International outrage to Trump's controversial Jerusalem decision late last year continues to rage on. The speech effectively severed the Palestinians' ties with the United States because they no longer see America as an impartial negotiator to Middle East peace. This is a position held by much of the world now as well, who say that the issue of Jerusalem should only be decided by Israel and the Palestinians and not an external country. Still, many Israeli politicians say it's finally time for the world to just admit the obvious and recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, something Israel as a nation has the right to decide. Despite many delays, rejections, and setbacks, Israel's cabinet is now prepared to legalize exports of medical cannabis. The decision comes following concerns raised by Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan being put to rest, with the addition of 25 new police officers to monitor growers. Erdan said that he supported the use and export of medical cannabis, especially in light of Israel's advanced knowledge in the field. But in a statement, he continued that as Public Security Minister, he's obligated to keep these exports away from illicit uses. Cannabis use in Israel is legal medically, but only slightly decriminalized for recreational use. Under the new proposed law, 50 growers will be licensed to export medical cannabis solely for medical purposes. The law further specifies that the export must be, quote, finished product only, not in the form of seeds, stems, or plants, a bullet point that, until being properly defined, is scaring pro-cannabis advocates. Despite these worries, however, most agree that this is a momentous step forward for the Israeli cannabis industry. During last night's Holocaust Memorial event in Jerusalem, Prime Minister Netanyahu took a moment out of his speech to call for action against the tyrannical Assad regime in Syria. The comments come amidst growing tensions in the region following a suspected Syrian chemical weapons attack. Syria, backed by Russia, denies any involvement, but this constitutes at least the 7th time chemical weapon attacks in Syria used on Syrian civilians have been attributed to the Assad regime. Netanyahu called out the, quote, lack of willingness among the powers of the West to stand firm in the face of the tyrannical regime and stop aggression at an early stage, end quote. United States President Trump, at least, has supposedly answered the call, vowing to respond militarily against Syria's crimes. Russia has vowed in response to shoot down any American assault, and then just yesterday the president tweeted, Russia vows to shoot down all missiles fired at Syria. Well, get ready, Russia. They will be coming, and you shouldn't be partners with a gas-killing animal who kills his people and enjoys it. A United States military response has yet to occur, and at the moment it's still suspected that Trump will try to follow through with promises to pull out of Syria completely in the next 6 months. Israel's Yad Vashem is a museum committed to preserving every last piece of evidence of the Holocaust. That includes testimonials from survivors, documents from the Nazi regime, and obviously hundreds of thousands of artifacts from the 6 million victims of the final solution. Today, there are only about 80,000 Holocaust survivors still alive in Israel, which is why preserving their artifacts is more important now than ever. Yad Vashem's ongoing Gathering the Fragments drive asks people to gather any Holocaust-era items they may have and donate them to the museum to educate future generations. Obviously, this is a very personal request for many, but one that thousands of survivors and their families fully understand. One woman recently donated her doll that she kept during the time of the Nazi regime, on the condition that she can come to the museum a few times a year to see her beloved keepsake. The drive has collected nearly 124,000 treasured artifacts since it opened in 2011. This includes personal documents, uniforms worn in the Nazi death camps, pictures, pocket watches, and so much more. In some cases, the collecting of all these artifacts has even opened long-forgotten doors to the past. An Israeli woman was just able to read a letter her mother wrote to her back in 1943 before being sent to her death at the Sobibor concentration camp mere days later. That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.